Hey, besties. Okay, so I decided to indulge in one of my favorite hyperfixations, actually. And so I'm finally going to actually sort of geek out, a little bit about Game of Thrones and just like the worlds, the families that I like. Not too much of the lore, but like a little bit. And so I really wanted to start off with a map because map is really important. So I'm going to be talking about like my 5 favorite families. I just chose 5 because like I could do more, but like I had to sort of put a limit on the number because it could get kind of crazy. And so basically I found this map and I'm gonna like credit everything in like the description box, but it was really helpful regarding like looking visually at like the climate of Westeros and just like the entire world of Game of Thrones. And so they basically put the map of the Game of Thrones worlds onto like our worlds, and so the climates are supposed to sort of match the areas that they've been put over top of, basically. And so I'm going to be talking about basically 5 of the families from Westeros, because of course I am. And so they're all in like a more mild climate for the most part. I'm not talking about the north because I like the Starks, but like I don't know, they weren't in the running. So actually I'm just going to introduce the houses and like where they are. So I'm probably gonna have to like zoom in because it's kind of far away. But essentially I'm going to be talking about the Martells, the Tyrells, the Arryns, the Targaryens, and the Lannisters. So all of the 5 families are to the left side. They're all in that like light green color from bottom to top, basically. The Martells live in Dorne, which is at the very bottom, really close to like that warm climate. It's very warm there. And then the Tyrells live in Highgarden, which is in the Reach, which is like right above Dorne, basically. So it's still really quite warm, not really cold too often. And then the Lannisters live in Casterly Rock, and that's in the Westerlands. So it's like sort of a mixture between warm and slightly more like cooler temperatures, but nothing like super cold. And then if you move over to the right a little bit, it's not labeled here, but that little like green island is actually Dragonstone. And that's obviously where the Targaryens are at, or at least that they have control over. And then at the very top is the Vale, and that's where the Eyrie is, and that's where the Arryns are from. I'm gonna add a little family tree. Not that we need to know about like all of the intricacies of the family tree, but just so you can like sort of see who's where and what, and like their little house sigils. Even though I have that on like their own specialty cards for when I'm like making sim anyway, I just thought I'd like include it there so you can see like who I'm talking about. And now we can get into the actual like sim making. So the first sim that I'm making is actually a Martell, and their house words are unbowed, unbent, unbroken. And obviously that's supposed to relate to like the sun spear, because they're known as like the sun spear house. They obviously are located in Dorne, and their colors are gold, red, and orange. And so I put up some examples, 3 of my favorites in fact. And so you can really tell for the most part, because in that first photo, like obviously the girl is not from the Martell family, but mostly they have like dark brown hair, and it's like wavy or like curly, and they're dressed in like really like flowy things that are obviously in the gold, red, or orange color, even kind of pinkish, but like it's mainly gold, red, and orange because that's what makes up their house sigil. And the houses in Game of Thrones are very based on colors. Like it's extremely based on colors, and that's why I had like an epiphany one time that I kind of make sims the same way that Game of Thrones acts with like families and like family colors, because I give like every sim that I like their own color, especially if I'm playing in like a legacy challenge. It's very similar in that way. Like they're pretty strict with the colors that they get to dress in, because obviously different colors represent different houses. So for this sim, I'm gonna give them each like names from like a person from that house and like history, or like I guess Game of Thrones current reality kind of, sort of, but they're not meant to like represent that person necessarily. I just needed a name basically. And so what I wanted for this, I wanted the Sims to have like curly wavy hair, and it seemed like the girls in the Martell family had more like long hair, or at least like more flowy, and I chose this like curly wavy hair with like the gold clips, because gold, like they use gold a lot obviously for dressing, but also for like accessories. And I found a bunch of like really good recolors. I'm gonna link the Tumblr that I got like most all of this stuff from, but also Sifix, I think that's how you say it. They do like amazing work. They have like amazing things. And I got like all of the dresses from there, and then people just like recolor to fit more of like Game of Thrones stuff specifically. But I really wanted to use this like gold flowy dress too, and I think they have a bit more of like a quote-unquote like Middle Eastern type look slash more Spanish, and so I wanted to make sure that like the sim kind of represented that. They're definitely more like tanned than like the other people in like Westeros, because like I'm assuming it's because of how close in proximity their like country, I guess, is to like the not real equator. So like the people there are much more tan than the other people in Westeros, and they have like more curly hair. They just have more like ethnic non-white European features basically. And so I gave her a personality that sort of matched with what I thought the Martell family sort of stood for, and like they were all very self-assured, very talkative, very outgoing, and a little adventurous too. They just have a really like particularly confident sort of vibe. And I gave everyone the leader of the pack aspiration too, just because like Game of Thrones, you know. And then the next family is actually the Tyrell family. And so essentially the Tyrell's house words are growing strong, which I think is so cute since they live in Highgarden. Like that's very cutesy. And their colors are blue, green, and gold. And their sigil is obviously like a flower, like a golden flower on like a green background. And I thought that was so pretty. And I made their like background blue because I saw that like Marjorie Tyrell, like one of the most famous Tyrells, she wears a lot of like blue, like a gray blue and then green. And then obviously Olenna also wears like blue a lot too, with like golds also. And I didn't want to do too much green. I gave this sim that I'm making like one bluey outfit and one greeny outfit. I didn't want this sim to be confused like a Hightower, which is like another family in Westeros, and their house colors are like green too. And typically you'll see people in that house also have like brown hair or like red hair and like blue or green or brown eyes. So I didn't want to have any confusion there. And yeah, so I didn't want her to be confused with a Hightower like Alicent. Like that's not the same family. So I wanted to make sure I was able to use like a more bluey green, I guess more like teal blue color. And also I didn't want her to be confused with like an Arryn or a Hightower because of like the different colors. But I also thought that they would be more like courtly, like very much more like proper, but also a bit more like trendy than like the Martells that live in Dorne, which is like a little further away from like King's Landing. So like they wouldn't really, I don't know, like they're not the same basically. They're not as like King's Landing trendy, but I definitely felt like they would. So they would definitely have like their hair up and stuff. And obviously I tried to accessorize with like gold as much as I could. And yeah, and I gave her like butterfly earrings because it's like Highgarden, like surely butterflies have to be there. So I wanted to make sure that she had like one bluey outfit and then one green outfit with a more like flowy dress, but with those same like gold accents, because I feel like this is much more of like a trendy sort of fashion look, and I wanted to make sure that obviously she was wearing like her proper house colors. And also these sleeves, like these like cutout sleeves, feel like something that I've definitely seen on the show. Even though this dress wasn't necessarily a dress made from Game of Thrones, but it definitely felt very right in the setting. And I gave her Green Fiend, Nosy, and Self-Assured, because one thing about the Tyrells, they're going to be in somebody's business. And then the next sim, which there's a bias here, basically. There is a very obvious bias, and I don't care, so you can boo me, but I think I'm right in saying that the Targaryens are the best house. I don't think anyone would necessarily disagree with me, even though I definitely know somebody who would. But they're just the best house. I don't know what to say. I enjoy their vibe so much. I love how like deeply connected to a place they are, like being connected to old Valyria and almost like an indigenous culture, basically, that's like based on dragons and edginess. Like it's so cool to think about. And so of course I gave her like the proper Targaryen purple eye color, because the only reason why they weren't a purple-eyed people in the show is because Emilia Clarke had like a bad reaction to the eye contacts in the first season, so they just went with like her traditional like blue eyes, and now they're like kind of stuck with that forever. Even into like House of the Dragon. But I wanted to make this sim very sharp lines, like very reptile-esque, and I did do the really brave thing of giving her like white blonde eyelashes, because it would kind of make sense, you know, since that's the color that their hair grows in. And I really enjoy the thought of thinking that Targaryen women resemble dragons in some way, and you can kind of see it in like House of the Dragons. Like Rhaenyra does look and act very dragon-ish a lot of times. And also, spoilers but no spoilers, but also spoilers, when she like loses baby Visenya, she like comes out looking very dragon, because there's like some sort of connection between like Targaryen babies and dragons, and like the power to like connect and like harness the dragons even in like the womb. Like there's something there from even before birth, and I just think that's so cool, you know. They're just the best house. Like nobody's doing it like how they're doing it. And so the Targaryen house words are fire and blood, and they're obviously located in Dragonstone, and their colors are red and black with like gold or silver accents. And then I have some examples. I know the first example is technically not red or black, but it is like the sickest dragon scale coat I've ever seen in my life. Like, it was such a serve, actually. Truly anything that Daenerys wore was a serve. Like it's impossible to make her wear something bad. It was always a hit. And so I wanted to sort of style this sim in more of like a old Valyria type influence, basically. So I went with like this headdress, and I found these like Targaryen earrings from that like Tumblr blog that I'm definitely going to link. And then I did like the line lipstick that comes in the base game. Well, not the base game, but like, you know, like the game. I think it's from Get to Work, but like it feels very Targaryen Valerian wedding with like the blood and everything. And so yeah, I tried to make her look as cool and mysterious as possible at all times. And I was definitely not disappointed. So, and I found so many interesting hairstyles and stuff. And I know that like technically the braid thing came from the Dothraki, like with Daenerys. That's why like by the end she has like so many braids, because it's like whenever you win a battle you're supposed to add a braid or something like that. But it sort of became a thing for the Targaryens from like House of the Dragon. Like they have a lot of like braided hairstyles too, so I imagine that like they wouldn't do like the multiple different types of braids thing, but they would definitely have some braids. Like braids would be part of their like culture, I guess. And I was also able to make her black because we sort of freed ourselves from the myth of only white Valerians or Targaryens in House of the Dragon. And so I was like, well, anything is possible now. And I was actually able to make her like black, and I'm so happy. Actually, I'm like so happy, and it works so well. Like, I think Baela, like the character of Baela, is like one of my favorite characters on House of the Dragon, and obviously Daenerys is my favorite character period in Game of Thrones. So I was of course always going to be very normal about making this character, and I tried to give her one of like the Daenerys hairs that I got many years ago, but it was still with like the old EA swatches, so it didn't have that like light platinum blonde color, which was very unfortunate. Like super unfortunate. So I kind of had to cheese it a little bit with like the universal color swatch thing, but like it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful, like I couldn't not use it. And so I gave her a hot-headed, self-assured, and macabre, because that's the Targaryens down. Like it's so them. And the next house is the Arryns, and their house words are as high as honor, which is such a slay because they live like really high up in the Eyrie, which is where they are located in the Vale. And like their house is literally like high up, and they have this like moon door that's like a giant hole in the bottom of it, so they can just like throw people out of it to their death basically. And the examples are very slay. You may be wondering why Rhaenyra is there twice, but that's because her mother Emma is actually an arryn, and so she wears a lot of blue in the show as like a tie to her mom. And these were some of like the best arryn blue fits that I could find. And so obviously their colors are sky blue and white. And aside from Rhaenyra or like any of the Targaryen related arryns, they are usually like brown hair to like dark brown, light brown hairish, and they have like blue eyes. And I wanted to make sure that they were wearing like the lightest blue color, and I really love this like sky blue color. It looks so good. And I made her quite like shy because I feel like there's not like a sane arryn in the place. Like all of them are kind of off in a way. I think it's because of the like isolation that comes from living like way up there in the Eyrie, but also being isolated from like everybody else low-key. Like I don't know, I feel like there's always something going on with the Arryns. And so for her makeup I wanted to keep it very like light, but also obviously like the sky blue. And from what I could see, they had more like flowy hair, like long sort of flowy, not too flowy but like a little bit flowy. And so I wanted to sort of replicate that here. And low-key, not for too long. I have to go back really quickly to the Targaryens because I just missed one small thing. And about like the temperature is very similar to that of like Castle Rock, which we'll get into because it's literally on like the same line. But also I wanted to make sure that it was like slightly warm but also a little bit flowy, because they're more in like a mild climate where like, it can be like cold or hot. And so I wanted to make sure that I added that here. But for the Arryns, like it would definitely be cold, but I also didn't have like any kind of coats or anything, and that was just sort of my own fault for not like trying to source a like coat that I could use. But I did try to keep her in more like long, slightly thicker, more like material, so that way it would be like a warmer dress, because they're literally living like in the air and they're close to the north. I believe they're like the closest family to like the north if we go by like that map that I showed you at the beginning. I made sure to accessorize them in like a like light golds, because that's at least what I saw, like a lighter gold, not like as rich as like a martell gold. And I don't know, they seem very like shy, timid, but also a little crazy. So it was kind of difficult making their like house personality. So I gave them gloomy, loner, and paranoid, because like that feels like that sums up the Arryns to me. Aside from Emma, she was like the only normal Arryn. And then I just quickly go back to Visenya because I wanted to try out the like Daenerys armor on her, but like it didn't fit. Like it just, I don't know, it didn't look right to me, and so I like scrapped it. But like I just wanted to show that I had it. The last house has to be the Lannisters, because as much as I hate them, I also really love them. Like they are icons, for better or for worse. And so their house words are "hear me roar," because of course it would be something cringy like that. They live in Casterly Rock and their colors are red and gold, which I found was a little similar to the Targaryens, but obviously the gold really helps to like shift it. And some examples, some of my favorite examples. And I know that I've been putting like men on the example board, but there's absolutely no way that I would be able to do this if I did men. I don't think people are making enough CC specifically for Game of Thrones to even warrant me trying to make men, so I won't be. But obviously I think the Lannisters are most caught up with like King's Landing trends, so I wanted to give them more like court trendy hairstyles with lots of like braids and uppadoos and stuff. And obviously like you have to be blonde. If you're a Lannister, like you're gonna be blonde and annoying. The list is very short. There's like no one that doesn't fit that. That is like that should be their house words, really. And so of course I tried to make her look very Lannister like. I literally have like a Cersei dress, because Sifix did make a dress specifically from, I believe it's like the first photo in the example. It's like a really scooped dress. I'm literally doing it right now. It's a scooped dress with like these big sleeves, and it's so cool looking. And Cersei literally wears it in the show, so it was absolutely perfect. And I wanted to give her like an obnoxiously large gold ring, because I feel like they would have that. And just to like accent the red with gold, and just wear really gigantically obnoxious earrings and like necklaces and just jewelry in general, because they are very loud, literally and also not literally. And so I wanted to really make sure that like the red and gold came through, even though technically that necklace is not gold, but just pretend you don't see that. You don't see anything. And so I also wanted to make sure she had like flowy hair too, because Cersei and also her daughter, whose name escapes me in this moment, typically wear their hair very like flowy, if they're not in like a braid of or an updo of some sort. And I wanted to just make sure that the red and gold vibes were there. And as far as their personality, I made them ambitious, snob, and proper, because that's literally their whole house. And for screenshots, of course, I put the Targaryens first, because I put the Targaryens first in all things that I do. And I really love how this turned out. I really enjoy being able to talk about something that I am very passionate about and like see that in The Sims. And there's also this video by Bernadette Banner about like how historically accurate the Game of Thrones costuming is, and it's really good. It's kind of long, but like it's really good if you're like the same amount of obsessed as I am. So I'll link that too. It's like a companion video. And there's also some Pinterest boards that I did not make, but are really good too. They're definitely more like a companion Pinterest board. So I'll link those too. There's a lot in the description box if you care about it. But if you don't, I will see you in the next video.